I wanted to give you some tips today if you're struggling with ADHD or a recent diagnosis, or perhaps a suspicion that you might have ADHD, or perhaps you've been living with it for a while now and still haven't found the right coping strategies. But also, how does this apply to your job search? I know a lot of you are probably job searching right now. That's typically the type of clients I help. And I see some clients struggling with parts of their job search that they think they should be able to do, and their brain just isn't letting them. And they either feel guilty or they feel lazy, but that's not what's happening. ADHD has certain traits and kind of symptoms, or really kind of ways that our brain likes to do things, or habits that we form. And those aren't always productive habits, but it's what we have to work with. So there are solutions to these habits or to these ADHD traits, and that's the part we can focus on. So what are those ways that ADHD can come up in your job search? There's probably 4 areas it might be coming up in, and it's good to identify, where is my problem? Because not everyone has the same traits, or it's not messing with their job search, or you might have already found coping strategies. So which one is your roadblock? When you can narrow that down, then you can focus on moving forward and solving for that particular roadblock. Now, the first area might be simply difficulty with focus and attention. It is a challenge to stay focused on job search tasks, and that might lead to distractions, being on your phone instead of job searching, task switching, and then you forget maybe that you were going to even submit an application, and you might have a bunch of tabs open. That might be where you're having trouble. The other problem might be procrastination. Often we struggle and might put off important activities until the last minute, either because we're unsure if we can do them, or maybe we have a kind of perfectionist tendency, or we don't have enough information to complete it, or simply we like the rush and the crunch of time. And so we're doing everything under stress at the last minute, and perhaps we're missing deadlines. We also could be dealing with impulsivity. Are we applying for jobs really impulsively without actually assessing the fit or our qualifications, or adapting our resume, or double checking our resume? Are we applying with having maybe typos or grammatical errors when we could be double checking a little bit more? And then the fourth area you might be having trouble with is just the time management component of it and organizing. Are you losing which jobs you're applying to and losing track? You might have less time management skills, or that might be affecting you more. And so you might, overlook certain opportunities that had deadlines, like apprenticeships or internships, or you might have a chaotic job search process and it just feels disorganized. I completely relate to that. Sometimes we're doing all the work, but we're having trouble tracking it. And so then when a recruiter calls us and says, I want to interview you for so-and-so job, we've lost the job description, or we don't remember applying. We don't know what resume that we sent them. And so that might be what you're struggling with. So are we dealing with difficulty focusing or our attention span, procrastination until the last minute, impulsivity, or maybe time management and organization? There might be other arenas this comes up. Perhaps it could be in your interview process as well, talking quickly or getting distracted if you get interrupted, or memory loss or lack of recall in interviews. But let's assume we're talking about the application process first, and I might have a second video about interview skills later. If we come up with strategies, I think the procrastination trait, I guess, that comes up a lot with ADHD also relates to impulsivity, because we might be impulsively applying at the last minute because we procrastinated. We also might not be managing our time well because we're procrastinating. Therefore, time management is all this cycle. So how do we address procrastination? First of all, I think often what's going to help. However, this is not a one size fits all advice, but some things that might be experiments to try and see if they work might be breaking tasks into smaller steps. I find this is the key, and it seems obvious, but when I say apply to 5 jobs, I procrastinate because I don't know what's involved. And the simplest small task, such as logging in to a Workday profile or remembering my login to LinkedIn so that I can get onto LinkedIn, is one smaller step. And if I write down those smaller steps, or tools like ChatGPT or any AI tools can also help you break these into smaller steps, might feel less overwhelming and easier to start, and you can check off the small little steps that lead into the bigger task you want to accomplish. The second thing is to use timers. I have my kitchen timer, which I talk about all the time, right here, and fake deadlines for yourself. We can create our own deadlines, and you can have other people hold you accountable to those deadlines. So that could be setting specific time limits for writing a cover letter, and you don't go beyond that. Or if it seems like it takes a long time to write a cover letter, sometimes when we have ADHD, we don't know or we're not aware of accurate sense of time. We kind of have this like time warp sense of time. So if you think it takes an hour, it might actually only take 10 minutes. But if we don't time ourselves or give ourselves like a time frame to do it, we keep thinking it's an hour-long task. Right? How many of us have thought that loading the dishwasher takes an hour, and when we actually time ourselves, it takes 5 minutes? Right? So we might procrastinate less if we know the accurate time it would take to do a task. They also are going to give you a sense of urgency when you either have a time limit or a deadline for yourself. You could experiment with that. See what works for you. Maybe an online timer works better for you, or a phone timer. I like the kitchen timer because it does not keep me on my phone, which might be a distraction. The third thing you could try is to create either a structured routine or a rhythm. I like talking about rhythm. That works better for me, so I'm going to focus on that. The biggest conundrum I find with ADHD is that often we hate routine, we don't want to do it, but we need routine. So this is why I want to talk about rhythm. To me, my flow state is really important, and I really can only work well when I'm in a flow state. So it's almost like I have to wait for that rhythm or that flow to come along and then utilize it appropriately. Now, when I'm in a flow state, sometimes I don't know what I'm supposed to be working on, or I'm not prioritizing the most important things. So I have a rhythm and a pick list for when I get into a flow state that I want to accomplish that reminds me of my priorities so that I can refer to a document and not get lost in rabbit holes that will not benefit me. If you like routine, if it works for you, or if you haven't tried a structured routine yet, you could go that route. And so, a consistent daily routine, or it could just simply be a weekly routine. Am I doing my job search Monday through Friday until 5 p.m.? Do I not like working in the mornings and I like working more at night? So I'm actually going to job search from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. What's your start? What's your finish? And where do you work the best? When do you work the best? If you know that, then you can establish the rhythm you want for your day or for your week, and then allow your brain to flow in and out of these different flow states and rest and do whatever else you need while maintaining your priorities and having those documented somewhere near you. That can really help. So you need to experiment with what works for you. And if having a daily routine of wake up at 8 a.m. and do XYZ does not work for you, you don't need to blame yourself. You might just need a different way to accomplish your weekly goals and move towards getting a job. So what do you need to do in your job search, right? We need to research companies. We need to network. We need to apply for jobs. We need to practice our interview skills. So those are chunks of things that you have to do during the week. As long as you're doing some of those things consistently every week, then that is perfectly fine. So what type of structure would work for you to do that? You can also utilize external accountability. Sometimes it's really hard to keep ourselves accountable. And so when we share our job search goals or our routine or our rhythm that we want or our priorities for the week with supportive friends or family members or a mentor or a coach who can provide support and help keep you accountable for making progress, you might find that you're more motivated. Now, you also might find that you do not like external accountability and just updating others or pleasing others does not help you. Experiment with this. See if it works. If it doesn't, don't do it. And then also reward yourself and reward your brain. A lot of the job search takes a lot of spoons, a lot of energy, and people with ADHD take up more energy just to get through the day with simple tasks like brushing our teeth or remembering to eat breakfast or lunch. And so remind yourself, the job search is hard. So is just, getting into any type of daily routine. We're allowed to reward ourselves for the small pieces. Just for staying on track, we can reward ourselves. We can give ourselves little dopamine boosts from different things that might help us. So maybe that is purchasing something really small or really silly, for example, when you celebrate a milestone. How do you know what those milestones are and what do you want to celebrate? I would at least suggest every time you get a phone screen, celebrate it. No matter how it goes, getting a phone screen is something you should celebrate. When you accomplish your top priorities for the week, whether that's submitting 5 job applications or chatting with 5 people or sending 5 connect notes, celebrate that milestone. Your brain is going to need the dopamine. Our brains find it very hard to seek out dopamine, and we're constantly seeking it. So how could you reward your brain for that energy you're putting in? That's going to help you burn out a little bit less. And also remember self-care, rest, and having a shut-off time after you're done with your tasks for the day is really important. I hope some of these tips help. And just know you can always reach out to people for support, whether that is a career coach who has some ADHD awareness or has ADHD themselves, like myself, or friends and family who can support you along the way. All right. Thanks for listening in.